So, hi everyone. I'm Kathleen Salans, and I want to talk to you today about being and doing. So, I'm going to start doing more live videos about just things that come up in my work and that I feel like can really benefit you. So, being and doing. So, what I realized about this is that in our society, we're so focused on doing, we're so like brainwashed almost to only want to focus on doing. And in essence, in reality, all of us, every human, has this natural flow where it's a combination or a dance between the being and the doing. So the way that I see it is that in our energy, throughout our days, we kind of flow in this, you could almost say like an infinity symbol, right? And we're constantly flowing from the being to the doing. And the way that you could see this in your day is, for instance, imagine that you're sitting on the subway, so the underground train. That would typically be a moment where you're being, because you're at ease, your body is resting, and you're just sitting, and usually there's going to be lots of thoughts and processes happening, and that's usually the time when we spark so many insights and awareness, right? And then you might arrive at your workplace, and what happens is you're going to really go into your doing. You're going to become really focused, and you're going to be really like goal oriented, and you're working on a project and like investing yourself in that, and your whole like mental capacity and energy is focused on that. So that's your doing. And then it can, even in your workplace, it will also go back to your being. For instance, if you get up from your desk and you're walking to the coffee corner, and you're seeing a colleague and you start chatting, typically you're going to be moving back into your being again, because if it's just a conversation and there's not really something that you need to be asking that person or asking for help or collaboration or information, if it's just a random conversation with a colleague, you're going to be again resting more in your like natural state of openness and receptivity, and just really this back and forth in the conversation with the other person. And that is much more, again, in your being side. Whereas if later that afternoon you have a conversation, for instance, with your manager, and you go into that meeting with the goal of arguing for a promotion or a raise or for assistance in a specific project, then you're going back into that more doing aspect, because you're focused on a goal and you're much more directive in how you show up in that conversation. So we're typically constantly, every day, just flowing like this, right? Constantly. And so the thing is that so many of us have really just been taught to only value what is on this side of that infinity loop, the doing side. And it's like everything that has to do with being is seen as a waste of time. It's like if you're not productive, and like being is not productive, right? In society's kind of viewpoint. If you're not doing, then you're not productive. If you're not productive, then you're not a good citizen. You're not a good like mom or dad. You're not someone who adds value to your own life and to your own goals, or to the goals of society or your family or community. So it's like this very one-sided narrative that we all kind of are stuck in. And what happens when we're not aware of that, okay, when we think that there's no loop, when we think that we can really stay focused only on the doing, what happens is that we start to go against our natural flow. Like everyone goes through being and doing throughout the day, okay, depending on what situations you're in. But at the same time, underneath that, there's also what I would call your natural flow. And your natural flow is different for every person. I have been working with clients who are more on the doing side, and I have been working with clients who are more on the being side. So as an example from my own life, so I worked in corporate for 14 years, and I was very much focused on that doing side. And coming out of corporate and now running my own business, what I've realized is that actually naturally my flow is like 60% focused in being and 40% in doing. And so in corporate, I was really kind of forcing myself constantly to only focus and be present in the doing side. And I was neglecting my natural loop, which is more oriented naturally on the being side. And so and to me that really showed up in exhaustion, like burnout exhaustion. Physically my body just couldn't really cope with that intense focus on doing, because for me naturally I'm much more focused on the being, right? And so, but this is different for everyone. You might be like 20% being and 80% doing, right? So it's different for all of us. What's important is that we learn to recognize what our own natural flow is. And a good indication of that is actually when you're having a day where you're not really having a lot of to-dos, like things that you really need to finish. So you're not really going to be constantly pushed in the doing. What that creates is like space. It creates space for you to examine where your natural flow really lies, okay? So it's going to show you if throughout your day you're actually more needing spaciousness, and if you're actually more focused on receiving information, on sitting with things, on being very tuned into your environment and the people around you. All of that is more being, okay? And on the other hand, if you're someone who is constantly really just feeling so alive and inspired by doing, then that is going to show you that your natural loop is more focused on that doing side rather than the being side. But at the same time, you know, no one is 100% being or 100% doing. There's constantly this beautiful loop that we have, okay? And if you start to really pay attention and start to see for yourself kind of roughly what percentage of being and what percentage of doing is really most feels just most resonant for you, okay? In your body, what feels best, what makes you feel most energized and alive, and that is going to really show you where your natural flow percentages are focused, okay? So it's really important for us to do this, because otherwise, no matter what you're doing in life, if you're going by society's standards and teachings, you're going to be almost 100% trying to focus on the doing. And for so many of us, that creates a lot of like physical complaints and issues and things like burnout, exhaustion, or we're constantly like going over what our adrenaline system can really handle in our body. So it's just not a very healthy thing, and also it's like it doesn't feel very fulfilling either, because you're constantly going against your natural flow, okay? So another word on being, just before I close this live stream, society really, you know, tells us that being is useless in a way, and it's a waste of time, and you're not a very good person if you're focused on being and not constantly focused on doing. That is kind of the whole narrative about being and doing. But when we look at being, actually for a lot of us, being is what is going to open space for our doing. So even in corporate, whether it's corporate or you're a business owner, it doesn't really matter if it's career or you have your own business. If we're constantly doing to-do lists and focused on the doing, we don't really create a lot of space for like creativity, right? And what poets call the muse. Now, I don't know about you, but for me in my business, the muse is like gold. She's what is giving me insights and ideas that are purely mine, and that set my business apart from other businesses that do the same kind of work as I do. So it's in that muse, in that creative space, that we get all of our best ideas. And if we're constantly focused on doing, then we don't really create that space for the being and for receiving the creative like downloads or information or insights. And so it's like we're missing such a huge part of what makes our business really work, and what sets it apart from other businesses. So it's actually, we're going against our own best interest if we don't actually allow ourselves that time for being. So that is definitely kind of a cultural narrative that I want to help shift, right? Because it's working against us if we don't allow the whole natural flow of being and doing, and if we're just focused constantly on the doing. So it's definitely something in our culture that I'm really hoping to see shift on a larger scale in the next couple of years. But also, just for yourself right now, today, I would really invite you to start looking at, where is my natural flow? Am I more of a being person with then a certain percentage in doing? Or am I more a doing person with a certain percentage in the being? And if you can start to really work with that natural flow between doing and being and doing, you're going to actually see in your body, and also just in how inspiring and exciting and alive and fulfilling and energized your life feels. You're going to see that you're tapping more and more into that natural flow and not going against it, okay? And so that is my biggest kind of hopefully takeaway for you today, is really sit with this idea that being and doing are equally important for us, that we always have this kind of flow happening, and that we all have a different like being and doing flow with a certain percentage on each side that is like our natural flow. And if we can really work with that and get instead of against it, then we're really supporting ourselves in showing up in the best way possible, you know, for ourselves, for our family and friends, for our communities, but also for our businesses or careers. Okay, so that is what I wanted to leave you with today. I also want to mention that I've created something new for you all that I'm really excited about. It's called Unlock Your Success Codes Activation, and it's something that you can download for free. It's a free gift that I've created for you, which is it's really good. The first part is that you're going to be guided through an intuitive process of setting your next income goal. And then the second part of the activation is that we really start looking and examining exactly what your version of success is, okay? So both of those are incredibly important if you're a business owner, knowing how to set really beautiful aligned income goals that feel exciting and juicy, and then also being able to focus all of your energy and attention towards the things that will really feel like you're highly successful and you're creating something that is like fulfilling for you, and not just what everyone else says that you need to create in your business, okay? So I'm going to put the link to that below. It's part of a giveaway. So I've partnered with, I think, 40 people in total, and we're giving away a lot of tools, templates, mini courses, ebooks, lots of things that really will support you in creating business success. And I think the timing of this is like perfect, because many of us are starting really to hone in detail more on our plans for 2020. So this seems like a really good time to be looking at your success kind of definition for 2020 as well, okay? So you'll find the link for that below this video, and let me know how this goes for you. If you decide to look at your natural kind of flow of being and doing, let me know in the comments or through a private message what you've discovered. Okay, so have an amazing day, and I'll speak again soon. Bye.